1090 Jake was so upset at me finding his statements that he wrote on inmates while he was in prison. As y'all can see clearly right here, it says witness statement at the top. That he made a video accusing me of putting that deflection tactic because he didn't want y'all to hear the story of how he set up his family to be robbed by his friends, only to turn around and snitch on his friends to his family, and then allow his family to snitch on his friends to law enforcement. As if that's not crazy, he then came to the internet and accused his friends of being the snitches. Sit back, take a seat, and listen to this story. 1090 Jake has spent calendar years telling us the story of his arrest and conviction, and pretty much using his background as a stepping stool to challenge the authenticity of other rappers, creators, pretty much anybody who appears on social media that he thinks he can find paperwork on. But has he ever shown us the real paperwork from his case that would even give him the credentials to do this? See, everybody who's been into any type of anything knows that if you want to get the details on an arrest, you got to get the arrest report, the police report. This is what 1090 Jake had to say to us about his arrest report, police report.
There's just no arrest report because I wasn't arrested for it. I was already in jail and the charges were added on. But I went on my co-defendants and I actually have my co-defendants arrest report to read y'all because this actually gives a description of what happened. Now we have Tyrell, we have the location of the offense, which is where it happened. We have his address, which I'm going to block out, his personal information. No gang affiliation. Tells you his complexion, height, 6 foot, 170. Same charges, grand theft firearm, burglary. And down here in the arrest report, it says, on 10/1/2012, between whatever times, the defendant entered the victim's residence through the rear door without permission and took 15 firearms, miscellaneous jewelry, and approximately $600 in change without permission. Entrance into the residence was made by cutting the screen on the pool area. The total value of the items taken is approximately $8,330. Subsequent to arrest by the Tampa Police Department at approximately 2 something, I can't read what that says, handguns from the victim's residence were discovered in the possession of the defendant. The defendant was ID'd via Florida something. This occurred within Hillsborough County, Florida. So it basically just says that we cut the hole into the screen door, we went in, we took guns. When he was arrested at his home, they found 2 guns from that armed burglary in his house.
What you just heard was 1090 Jake giving us an excuse for why he cannot produce a police report from his case. I want y'all to take a look at what I believe is the real reason 1090 Jake didn't want to show us the police report. And it's going to start with him telling us about this co-defendant.
Mask, tattoos on face, Chinese symbol, tats on chest. They didn't include my arms or anything else. It is what it is. And then I have my co-defendant, Camilo Giraldo. Shout out to my dog Milo. He's actually in prison right now. He's going to be wrapping up his bid and he's coming home in a few months. So I'm really excited for bro. But hey, shout out to you.
I did my homework, and contrary to Jake's claims, there actually is an arrest report, a police report, and it details how, some neighbors witnessed a home being burglarized and they contacted the police. They gave descriptions of the burglars to the police, and they also gave a description of the car that they were in with a license plate. They described the car as a white Honda. But that's not the craziest part. After interviewing the victim of the burglary, the police got a statement from him saying that if he could think of anybody that would do this to him, it would be Jacob. And that he actually had his guns hidden because of Jacob. Based on information provided by the victim as to who may have had knowledge of the residence and the things that were inside of it, which we know now to be Jacob, The police made contact with the victim's sister, Kathy, and her live-in partner, Sean. Kathy would state that she is Jake's guardian and has been since he came to live with her and her partner since he was 14 years old. She also stated that he was on probation. He had been home. To her knowledge, he did leave for a short while. She also stated that he has a friend named Camilo and that he and Camilo had been friends for about 6 months. The police also interviewed Kathy's partner, Sean, who stated via telephone that she had knowledge of a white Honda that belonged to a subject she knew only as Camilo. She stated that Camilo was Jake's friend and that Jake was Jacob Cherry, who actually lived with her and her partner Kathy since Kathy had taken custody of him at age 14. She stated that in the last week, she had seen Jake leave the house and get into a white older model Honda with Camilo. Williams could not say if it was a 2-door or a 4-door, but she did state that it was a sporty type of vehicle. She described Camilo as a Hispanic male with a medium complexion, approximately 5'8". License plate info provided by witnesses and vehicle descriptions provided by Jake's family led to a guy named Tyrell. Within 24 hours, the police show up at Tyrell's residence claiming that they are there to investigate an unrelated incident, but they find weapons related to this burglary. Tyrell is taken into custody. He's asked about a burglary. He denies any knowledge of a burglary. They then tell him his license plates was called in at the scene of a burglary, and he says, hey, I loaned my car to Milo, so everybody's just throwing Milo's name around at this point. They asked him about a white guy named Jacob. He denied knowing any white boys. He denied any knowledge of a burglary. And when they asked him, how did you end up with these stolen guns then? He said, hey, I bought them from a tweaker down the street for $50. So Jake is claiming Tyrell told on him. Tyrell denied even knowing any white boys, not just a white boy named Jacob. According to this probable cause affidavit filed October 12th of 2012, Tyrell sat in jail by himself for close to a week after denying knowing anybody named Jacob. Jake was later arrested in an unrelated incident in which the police discovered him in possession of a firearm. They ran a check on the firearm. That firearm was determined to be one that was stolen during this burglary, which is why in jail by himself for close to a week after denying knowing anybody named Jacob. Jake was later arrested in an unrelated incident in which the police discovered him in possession of a firearm. They ran a check on the firearm. That firearm was determined to be one that was stolen during this burglary, which is why the probable cause affidavit states the defendant knows the victim, had knowledge of the victim's guns, and previously been inside the victim's home as a guest. The defendant is connected to the victim through the victim's sister. Jake didn't want to show y'all this because this would have blew up his whole claim that the only thing connecting him to the case was the fact that he got caught with the gun and his co-defendant's statement.
That gun was one of the only connections to me and the armed burglary that I was charged with. So there was an armed burglary, grand theft of 15 firearms, and grand theft 5,000 to 10,000. So I had those charges. This gun linked me to that. The only other link was my co-defendant snitching.
And because at this point, there is no statement, but they know you involved because your family telling everything. According to Jake's Aunt Kathy, immediately after Jake was arrested, he would call home, pouring his heart out. Not only would the detectives be listening in to these phone calls, but they would actually call her after the phone calls, and she would sit on the phone with them for hours, discussing with them Jake's character and actually advocating for Jake.
I will never forget the day that he was arrested for this big thing that he did that got him sent to prison. And the detective was video or audio taping, recording all my phone calls with Jake from jail. And the detective called one day and I spent 2.5 hours on the phone with him. And I told him what Jake is like as a person, who he is, what his upbringing is, You know, I tried to explain that there was more to this person than what he sees and who he arrested.
This is where it gets interesting, because in her original statement, she didn't know much of anything. Jake's her nephew that's been with her since she was 14 years old. She knew what time he was home and what time he had left. Didn't know much of anything about his friend Camilo, except that he and Jake had been friends for about 6 months and what he looked like. Yet strangely, after talking to Jake and detectives, she ended up on a witness list, a category A witness list that was provided to Tyrell on November 19th of 2012. In 1090 Jake's own words, Tyrell didn't decide to make a statement or come clean until December 14th of 2012.
State of Florida versus Jacob Goddamn Cherry. Notice of taking prefer statement. The state of Florida gives notice that on December 14, 2012 at 10:30 a.m. at the office of the State Attorney Hillsborough County Courthouse, before a person authorized to take depositions, the state will take the deposition by oral examination of Tyrell for the purposes of discovery or evidence or both, pursuant to Florida Rules of Criminal Procedure. December 14th. An early Christmas present to find out this bitch told on me.
Which would have been about a month after finding out that Jake had been on the phone talking to his family, his aunt, and that his aunt had now been added to the witness list against Tyrell. Jake also claims that him talking so recklessly on the phone around that time should be attributed to the fact that he was green and didn't know that the detectives would actually be listening in on the call.
I make a phone call and I'm dumb at the time. Like, I'm green. I don't know. I shouldn't have did it. What ended up happening was that night, I see like 3 sheriff officers come into the dorm, and they got chains with them. Come right up to me, chain my ankles up, chain my wrists up, chain me around my waist to take me to confinement on a conspiracy. Talk to the captain. I'm like, Captain, what happened? So they let me know, like, were you on the phone saying things you shouldn't have been saying? I didn't say nothing because I'm not going to play dumb, you know what I mean? I was just like, damn, I wasn't even really thinking.
But I'll leave that up to y'all to debate whether this hardened, experienced, self-proclaimed criminal was unaware that the detectives would actually be listening to his calls, or that his aunt would take the information back to the detectives after he gave it to her. What I will say is that 1090 Jake's story about not having an arrest report or police report because he was never arrested for the crime is nonsense. What I believe, based on what you've just seen, is that 1090 Jake does not want to show people the original arrest and police report because it would expose him for organizing a burglary perpetrated against his own family by his friends. He then played victim to his family and snitched on his friends and allowed his family to snitch on his friends to law enforcement. He then played victim again by proclaiming that his friends were snitching on him, and that was the only reason why he was involved in this situation and sent to prison. He's really good at spinning stories, as you all could see, but he would have never been able to spin this story had he shown us the actual paperwork from the beginning. As for Camilo, regardless of how much Jake claims that he kept it solid and that was his real friend, Jake never told Camilo that his family was mentioning Camilo in connection to this burglary. Because Jake was found with only 1 firearm and Tyrell was found with only 2, the police considered Milo a big fish in this situation, some type of mastermind, and they were looking for the rest of these firearms. That ultimately led to the police executing a search warrant at Camilo's home, where they claimed that they were looking for firearms, rifle scopes, ballistic vests, ammunition, hunting accessories, and other firearm-related accessories. Y'all can tell from this list of confiscated evidence, when they got there, the boy Milo was loaded. In the end, as you heard 1090 Jake say earlier in this video, Camilo was given an 8-year sentence.
My co-defendant Camilo Giraldo. Shout out to my dog Milo. He's actually in prison right now. He's going to be wrapping up his bid and he's coming home in a few months. So I'm really excited for bro. But hey, shout out to you.
Tyrell was given a 5-year sentence.
What happened to Tyrell? My aunt told me that he was actually sentenced to prison. I think he got 2 in and 3 out, which is a total of 5 years.
And 1090 Jake got off with the least amount of time out of everybody with just a 3-year sentence.
This is my plea agreement. Carrying concealed firearm, a 3rd-degree felony, max up to 5 years. I am pleading guilty. I am pleading pursuant to a plea agreement. FSP, Florida State Prison, 36 months.
Y'all take that and make whatever you want to make of it. I'm just bringing you the story. One more piece of game I want to give y'all before we get out of here. This is how you can tell who was truly receiving leniency from the court. Both 1090 Jake and Tyrell entered guilty pleas. However, Tyrell was not only sentenced to more time, he was also given an open plea. What we call an open plea is when you go into court and you plead guilty, when you know your charge carries a specific time frame, but it's up to the court to determine how much time they give you.
This is the paper. It says his waiver of rights, armed burglary of a dwelling, maximum penalty, a PBO, which is punishable by life, grand theft 3rd degree, grand theft firearm, which is an F3, punishable by up to 5 years. Says that he is pleading guilty. He's pleading open to the court, understands there is no agreement as to what the sentence will be, and it doesn't even say the sentencing at the bottom.
As opposed to 1090 Jake, who entered his guilty plea and was promised a specific amount of time.
This is my plea agreement. Carrying concealed firearm, a 3rd-degree felony, max up to 5 years. I am pleading guilty. I am pleading pursuant to a plea agreement. FSP, Florida State Prison, 36 months. Now that's only on the first charge, which is a carrying a concealed firearm. Then you have my 3 additional charges: armed burglary of a dwelling, punishable by life, grand theft and grand theft of a firearm, both punishable by up to 5 years. I am pleading guilty and acknowledge I feel it is in my best interest to do so. I am pleading pursuant to a plea agreement, 36 months FSP.
Tyrell went into his plea not knowing what the outcome would be, whereas 1090 Jake went into his plea knowing exactly what he was facing. Don't let that go over your head. For the people who may have the question, Byron, how do you know the story of 1090 Jake and his betrayal of Camilo? How do you know that he never ever told Camilo about his name coming up in his paperwork and that it was his family who had actually put the police on to Camilo and his alleged string of burglaries? Well, just take a look at your screen. I heard it from the man himself. And make sure y'all stay tuned because we got the exclusive interview coming and we're going to get to the bottom of 1090 Jake's origins. With that said, I'm going to wrap this one up.
This one. How in the world did somebody with a juvenile record, knowing damn well that nobody can see it, nobody knows how he went from a life sentence to 36 months? This dude has never been to adult prison, did only juvenile, and he's out here checking all these celebrities' paperwork and exposing them. Well, whoa, what is this right here? Oh, it's a grievance, but some people come out and say that it doesn't mean anything. Yes, it does. Let me explain something. This dude wanted to get out of the shoe. I've spent about 18 months in the shoe altogether. I did 6 months stay one time. Yeah, we all want to come out of that shoe, but everybody knows damn well when you're in the feds, you do not drop names. You sit back there, rest your neck on that pillow is what they do. You sit back there, shut your mouth while you're in investigation. Once the investigation's over, it might take 2 weeks, might take 6 months. We don't know. But you don't drop names, okay? That's just how it goes. When they pull me in the investigation, SIS, I shut up. So, listen, we'll give him the opportunity. Why don't you come on our podcast? Come on at 10 toes in. Let me explain something to you. All he's got to do is bring his sentencing transcripts or whatever paperwork he has from a juvenile, and we'll put it on the table. Other than that, listen, I'm going to start exposing this. These people can't come out here and start exposing other people when they only did juvenile time or no prison time at all and want to talk all this crazy stuff. Everybody knows juvenile stuff sealed up. He can get it, though. Let's see it.